I was running as hard as I could, crashing through trees and brush, rocks zinging past my head as I went. My pursuers were howling like wolves, taunting me as they got closer and closer. "You're not getting away. You're fucking dead," Billy called. He was probably right. I was new to town, the gangly son of a single mother trying her luck somewhere new. I was extremely shy and very clumsy, an easy target, in other words. On my first day of school, Billy and his crew had taken an immediate interest in making sure I felt as unwelcome as possible. He body-checked me in the hallway, knocking me off my feet and onto the tile. Nobody had ever done anything like that to me before. I'd been so surprised that tears welled in my eyes. "He's crying. Can you believe that? Fucking loser," he laughed, pointing at me as his cronies joined in. Stan, Earl, and Freddie made up his gang of punks, all eager to impress Billy. They were needlessly cruel, the epitome of all bullies. They always seemed to find times to torture me when no one else was around. Their ruthless antics constantly kept me on my toes the following weeks. The day before I was running for my life, I had made my way into a bathroom stall, only to see Billy's sneakers appear under the door. I pulled my feet up as he crouched down, looking up at me and laughing wickedly. The next thing I knew, lit firecrackers were being tossed in at me. I fell to the disgusting floor as they exploded all around me, terrified. His crew kicked the door open and snapped off a few pictures, hooting and jeering while I tried to pull up my pants. This was the last straw. I did what everyone said would make me a dead man. I went to the principal to report him. Principal Wiltshire was dying for somebody to come forward about Billy. It seemed everyone was too scared to.
"Tyler, you can rest assured he will pay for this. Thank you for being brave and coming forward,"
he had said, putting a hand on my shoulder. I had never been so humiliated, never felt lower in my life. I wanted to see Billy fry. As word spread about the school about what had happened, people came to me to do one of two things: thank me or warn me about the ramifications. Billy had been suspended for 2 weeks, which I learned would really set him off. A boy named Greg came to me at lunch the next day, asking if he could sit down with me. He was the only person who had sat with me. Everyone else gave the dead man walking a wide berth. "I admire what you've done, but I really think you should watch your back. Billy's father is really rough on him. If he has to spend a couple weeks at home, he's going to get it pretty bad. When he comes back, he'll be out for blood." I tried to convince myself that Billy wouldn't dare to touch me again, but it made me nervous. It hadn't done much to deter his gang. Stan and Freddie had gym with me, turning a soccer match into a full-contact sport. After I hit the ground for the 10th time, Stan loomed over me and issued me a warning. "You better be quicker this afternoon. Billy knows which way you walk home," he threatened, grinning down at me. Sure enough, as soon as I was far enough away from the school, Billy strolled out from behind some parked cars. His lips curled into the most evil smile I had ever seen, a freshly busted lip staining his yellowing teeth red. I turned and fled, my legs feeling too wobbly to support me. I didn't get very far before Freddie popped out, reaching for me and getting a hold of my book bag. I stripped it off and kept running, panicking, starting to sob as I tried to keep going. I knew they would catch me. They were much faster. I didn't know where I was going. I tried losing them by running into the forest. Their approaching footsteps told me it hadn't worked. The first rock hit my shoulder. The next ricocheted off a tree in front of me and hit my hip. Several more followed, a few finding me. Billy had closed the gap between us to about 10 meters. I had been looking behind me, trying to see where he was, not seeing the danger in front of me. I left my feet and flew headfirst over a ravine, falling and colliding with rocks as I tumbled my way downward. I let out a low moan when I reached the shallow stream at the bottom, rolling over to look up at Billy and his crew standing on the edge. "Fuck you," Billy cried, throwing more rocks down at me. A few landed close. I covered my head. I tried getting to my feet as they attempted to maneuver their way down the cliff. Sluggishly, I kept moving onward. My sense of direction had been thrown off, and I didn't know which way to go. I stumbled on, not hearing their lumbering footsteps coming after me yet. I made it a long way before I couldn't keep going. The sun was setting. I was getting deeper and deeper into the forest. I finally decided I had evaded Billy, taking a moment to catch my breath and think. I laid down on the forest floor, looking up at the darkening sky through the branches. A strong wind was starting to make them sway. A strange rattling sound somewhere in the distance made me sit back up. I tried to recognize the sound, listening closely. It sounded like wind chimes, meaning I had to be close to someone's home. I gingerly rose to my feet and followed the musical clacking sounds, hoping to find help. I traveled for a few minutes, finally seeing a light from a cabin window in the distance. I staggered toward it. The wind chimes were incredibly loud now. They must have been right over my head. I looked up, curious about what could be rattling so loudly. I gasped, tripping backwards and falling to the ground. I had no way of preparing for the sight above me. About 20 human skeletons hung from trees, puppet strings attached to their limbs, all swaying grotesquely in the wind. I stifled a scream as I saw the cabin door opening.
"Who's out there?"
A gruff voice called out, coming from a stout, balding man. He swung a lantern in front of him, scanning his property. His face turned into a ghastly smile as his eyes finally met mine. I couldn't get up fast enough. The shock I had suffered made my aching body betray me. He was upon me quickly, grabbing me by the hair. I yelled for help, desperately thrashing at him.
"Do you want to be in the puppet show, boy?"
He snarled, dropping the lantern and taking a hold of my collar, shaking me back and forth. I tried to fight him off, but he was much stronger than me. He dragged me backwards toward the cabin. I kicked wildly, trying to free myself from his grasp. As he pulled me up the steps, I caught a glimpse inside. More of his homemade puppets were suspended from the ceiling. Unlike the ones outside, these were in various stages of decomposition. Their skin was coming off in clumps, hanging off of them and melting onto the floors, their skeletal smiles peeking through their decaying faces. The stench made me gag. The horror of it all had frozen me. The man let go with one hand, reaching for a long club that was propped up against the wall. In my desperation, I pulled a wooden chair towards me with my feet, trying to use it to shield myself. He giggled at the futility, smashing the club through the back of the chair and laughing giddily. He was rearing back for his next swing when we both heard it. "You think we won't find you? I can see your tracks. I'm going to slice your face off," Billy's voice echoed from outside. The puppet man put the club down, looking back to me with glee.
"Oh, you brought a friend,"
he said, delighted. His grubby fingers tightened around the club's handle, and he crept to the doorway, peeking out into the night. I silently picked up a piece of the broken chair, trying to conceal it behind me. The puppet man turned around, lowering the club.
"Come here. Call him over, now,"
he whispered, beckoning to me. I kept the piece of chair behind my back, cautiously making my way to the door. "Will you let me go if I bring them here? There are 4 of them." His eyes were glinting with joy. He bared his blackened smile at me, sliding his gray tongue across his teeth.
4, you say?
He pondered, looking at me for a long moment. I got ready to strike, planning on stabbing the jagged end of the wood right into his jugular.
We have a deal, lad,
he finally said, extending his dirty hand for me to shake. I took it, trying to release myself from his grasp quickly. He moved aside, allowing me to pass. I leapt down the steps, getting away from the mutilated puppets as fast as I could. I see you, you stupid fucker. Billy came rushing at me. I swung the chair piece at him, stabbing it into his eye with all of my force. He fell to the ground screaming. I kept running as the rest of his posse appeared, swarming around him. Holy shit! What the hell? I heard Earl say as he noticed the skeletons hanging from the trees. I looked back to see all of them gazing upward, not noticing the puppet man coming up behind them, his club raised above his head. I looked away before he brought it down on them, their screams echoing in the forest as the sickening thud of the club sounded again and again. I was lost, running a chaotic, disorganized path through the woods. I was never really sure how I returned to the ravine. I finally made it back over and was able to find my way home from there. I tried to get the images of the rotting corpses hanging from strings out of my mind as I lay in bed that night, but the thought of Billy's limp body dancing around whimsically brought a smile to my face. I knew I would return to see the puppet man. I hoped he would put on a special show for me once I got there. Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. Links to all my shit are down in the description. Merch, Patreon, Instagram, Discord. My other channel, which I haven't put anything on for a bit. I'll be doing another True Scary Stories vid next. And that's about it. So, be good to animals, even people. See ya.
Ja, snälla, Bergsbus, Rish.